Thanks for your session.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Well, hello there, Christina. Nice to see your face.
Hi, Autumn.
Let's have a fun conversation here. So first up, let's start out with the fun stuff. Who's your favorite team? What's your favorite sport?
All right, so that's an easy one. I love hockey, and I absolutely love the New York Rangers. So for those of you who are New York Rangers fans, you may be as sad as I am over the last 24 hours. I'm not afraid to admit that part of my fandom was around Henrik Lundqvist. And so with him leaving, I can't imagine watching the Rangers without him. But yeah, it's my favorite sport and team.
Excellent. So tell us your career origin story. How did you get into sports marketing and experiential marketing?
So my story was a lot of hard work, some luck, and some really great mentors and bosses. But I came right out of college. I graduated from Rutgers University. And almost immediately, my mother was like, so you're going to start paying your health insurance. You're going to start paying your car insurance. And so I scurried very quickly to get a job. And I was fortunate to land at AT&T at a time where there was this new sponsorship organization that was forming. And it was a really long time ago. So it was really in the beginning stages of the sponsorship industry. And so I was an assistant to a really phenomenal lady boss, and she really impacted my career, but my life in what I was able to learn from her. As a woman in sports, as a leader, and the way she, really conducted herself. So Mary Reinling Spencer, if anybody knows her out there, she was amazing. She is amazing. She went on to the NBA and killed it over there. She led marketing in NBA Asia, then came back to the States and was the vice president of marketing at the NBA. She's at Wasserman. She's co-president of WISE, Women in Sports, for the Raleigh chapter. So that's my story. That's how I started.
Excellent. And so now you're at Verizon. Tell us about your role.
So my role here at Verizon is I lead the experiential marketing, and that is across all consumer, business, and corporate. So it encompasses sports, entertainment, industry events, trade shows, corporate events. And I lead a team of 26.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about experiential. Do you have a philosophy around the idea of experience in terms of the consumer or the fan?
So for experiential marketing, another great terminology that has come around is really engagement marketing. It's really about the engagement, and it's the moment in time in marketing where consumers or customers really get to engage with the brand. So for me, all the experience really has to be impactful enough that consumers, fans will want to interact, will want to engage with the brand, whether they're at a live event or now in a virtual sense, and really be able to take something away from it. So really get them to have an action that stems from that experience.
And how do you see that as being, vital to a healthy marketing mix for a brand?
Yeah. So again, I think, post-COVID a little different, but it was always an important mix, right? I do think that, like I said, it's that moment of that true engagement. It could be hands-on. It's when the consumer or fan really gets to know your brand, understand what what you're representing, what you're selling. So it's important because you're not going to get that so much in a TV ad or in a billboard out of home. So it's a one-on-one with the consumer.
Absolutely. So I have to call out one of the campaigns that I know that you've worked on that was really inspiring to me, and that was the team that wouldn't be there, and a really amazing piece of sports marketing. Can you tell us about that project, how it came to be, and some of the process that your team utilized to build something that was just, so emotional and authentic?
Sure. Well, thank you very much. There was a lot of people that came together to pull that together, including, our agency, McCann. But so that one came about when we are focused as a company on first responders as a core audience, core segment for us. The way our network supports first responders and public safety and the entire public sector, super important. And so we started to dive into, all right, what are we going to do for a full NFL season? What are we going to do in the playoffs? And you start to do all of that management of what you're going to do and activate. And so we came up with a really emotional campaign in building out the team that wouldn't be here, which is really a representation of a full team and a coach who had their lives saved by a first responder. And we dove in and built a content series around that from both the player's perspective as well as the first responders' perspective. And, it did resonate with a lot of folks, and it was really impactful. We also, donated, to, the first responder organizations in support so that there's funding that went directly to, organizations that needed new equipment. But that ended up culminating in a Super Bowl spot with Coach Anthony Lynn, where we actually surprised him. He was really emotional. He was hit by a car. Hit and run, going 50 miles an hour. 2 police officers were a block away, heard the impact and went over. Like to actually have heard the impact, it was crazy. But we reunited him. He was surprised. He didn't know we were going to do that. We captured it for the spot for the Super Bowl. And it was just a really emotional campaign that connected, our public sector with the sport.
Do you find that fans and consumers are more and more hungry to see kind of behind the curtain and really view the humanity of these heroes in sports?
Well, I have to say yes, because the overwhelming response that we got with that campaign around seeing the pro players and the coach be real in their stories and relatable, because sadly a lot of us are impacted by accidents, and you really rely on first responders. So it was a story that that really resonated. And I think now in post-COVID, what we're seeing on social media and just even in the sidelines of broadcasts and stuff is the players being really real. Like you're starting to see real stories. They're struggling with homeschooling just like we are, trying to do everything. They're wearing masks, and so we're all in it together. And I think it's the first time that everybody is on the same kind of level playing field with this pandemic.
Absolutely. So, so we're here at a Women in Sports Summit, and so I thought it'd be appropriate to ask you a bit of a personal question. If you could share with us maybe one positive and one negative experience you've had as a female leader in sports marketing. We'd just love to hear, kind of your perspective.
Okay. So, I consider myself lucky in that I've had a lot of positive experiences, and I've as I talked about, my first boss, but was lucky enough to have male bosses and mentors who were allies to me, who were champions for me. So I do feel lucky, but I have seen, my colleagues, my female colleagues, and other phenomenal women in the industry get passed over for different things. And that's hard. It's been hard to watch, but I think, we're all moving in the right direction. A real negative that I experienced was, I knew it then, but, years later now, still looking back, it's still like, there's something that boils up in me, but was in a meeting with some male executives, and I was presenting. And in presenting, I was starting to give a little bit of my background for some of the credibility of what it was I was about to present. And I was cut off by a male exec to kind of just cut me off. And I was like, Christina, you don't look a day out of your 20s. And so I paused for a moment and was like, it's an interesting compliment. So I was like, thank you, and just continued to move on in the presentation. But was interrupted 2 more times with the same comment, with this just like total shock amongst him. Like, how could this even be true? So I knew then and now that it was a moment where I was being a bit discredited. I was being a bit like my experience, like I was being diminished in the room. And I was vocal. I took a moment of pause and said, every time, I appreciate it, but every time you say that, you're kind of discrediting me. And then it was followed by a very awkward moment of silence. But it's interesting because I got that moment of silence, but when he interrupted me 3 times, that wasn't silence. So, so that one has stuck with me for many years.
Yep. And I would assume that, as a woman in sports, you've had wonderful female mentors or bosses along the way. Do you yourself do any mentoring? And if so, are there any, key pieces of advice that you usually put out there in terms of, being a successful woman in what has been and can be a more male-dominated field?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I love being a champion. For other women, I love mentoring. And I really do, because I had it in my career, I do want to pay that forward. So some of what my advice has been is to try and stay true to yourself. Like, staying true to yourself is super important. We can get lost in this industry, trying to be something or appear as something that we're not, but whilst trying to stay true to yourself, but also be aware of what you're walking into, aware of the meeting you're going into, aware of the events that you're at, and just be aware of yourself. But with that, also build relationships. I think that a lot of as women, we need to build really strong relationships amongst ourselves, and male allies, but champion each other. That's what I would say. Let's not tear each other down, but that's part of what I try and advise.
Thanks for that. So, so pivoting from the business more to the marketing side, are you seeing more opportunities for brands to lean into sponsoring or doing experiential with female sports and athletes?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of a push in this area. Thankfully, I think that there's different organizations like See Her, that and Wise, and Women in Sports. Like, everybody's there to. I think number one, we really got to get representation of the women's sports on broadcast, a lot more exposure there. because with that then comes the brand support, and with that becomes more female hero athletes for our younger girls to look up to, want to be them. So I think that that's been shifting. I know there's a lot of work there. I know that we have a long way to go. I know there's a lot of really amazing female athletes pushing for that, and leaders of the leagues in doing so. So and a lot of brands that want to support. So hopefully it continues.
Absolutely. We're seeing the same things. So fingers crossed. And I agree with you. See her is huge. See her, be her, right?
Yes.
So I have to ask the obvious question. So you're head of experiential and a pandemic happens. Tell us about what this year has looked like for you and how it's impacted your business.
I think for all of us, for all of us, 2020 has been quite a year. I think, it started off, really busy, and, we start off with Super Bowl, and, we really went all out in the beginning of this year on that. Really having a big local presence. And then, yeah, COVID hit, and things came to a screeching halt. But it really has forced all of us to really think about the fan experience in a different way. Really try and lean into what are some of the things that are now missing when you can't be at a live event. Part of that is sharing a live event with your friends or your family, because that's what you do. You go there together. You have camaraderie with the fellow spectators. So, on our end, with Yahoo, we stood up, some tech and application around watch together, which is co-viewing experience. So I think you start to see a lot more of that thinking. How do we also expand virtual programs and reach more people than maybe I would if I had just activated on site? So we're trying to tap into a lot of different ways to continue really driving the fan experience as we even get into 2021.
Absolutely. In a safe way, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Safety first. And that actually leads to my next question, which is that planning for next year, particularly next year, is so complicated. What are some of the things you're thinking about? Are you thinking through plan A, plan B, plan C? How are you approaching, the development of 2021?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's all different plans that I think everybody's struggling with, because and I think some of the sessions today, we have to be true partners to all the leagues and the teams out there, because they're every day it changes for them, and what was planned back in June for September has been scrapped, and so you're going almost week by week of what is the impact in a city, in a location, in a venue, and then again, how many spectators could get in there and what you can actually do. So we are thinking of, different plans as we approach 2021, physical, virtual, hybrid, kind of everything. And just sticking super close with our partners on what we're going to be able to execute.
Yeah. Do you have any predictions? That's a kind of a mean question, right?
I predict that we're never going to know far enough in advance. But I do predict a lot of uncertainty as we hit 2021 and, post-election, all of the stuff that's going on in our country right now. So, but I remain optimistic. I think all of us as brands, as agencies, as sports and leagues, we're learning a lot right now in a really short amount of time that I think is going to have impact not only in 2021 but also beyond.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to ask you, who do you admire that's out in the marketplace right now? Are there any brands in 2020 or before 2020, because it is an outlier? Are there any brands that you feel are killing it in sports marketing?
Well, I have to say, and kudos to Bud Light. NFL Draft was, one of the first events coming up during COVID. They, um, definitely executed a virtual draft, and that was amazing. But the Bud Light campaign of "Boo the Commish," taking something that was such a live experience every time he got up on that stage, to have the commissioner actually be such a good sport, play along with it, have that hashtag out there. They got a ton of audience at social media. Campaign was phenomenal. I thought that was great. Also, the money went to charity as well. So, just again, I that one was clever and funny. But I also, kudos to Microsoft and really igniting the Microsoft teams in that category, because what they're doing with the fans, the mosaic that they do, is really really great, great.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we talk about the future of experiential, there's a lot of conversation about frictionless, ticketless, things like that. How do you see experiential ever being exactly like it was before 2020, or do you think that it will evolve? Curious what you think.
Well, I think I think experiential might have changed forever. 100%. I think some of the work that's being done now for venues and stadiums, and the frictionless, touchless, all of that, it's going to change forever. Like, there's no going back. Like, once you've experienced a fully digital, like, from the time you purchase a ticket through your entire experience, throughout an event, it's pretty hard to go back to think, all right, I'm going to go get that physical ticket. I'm going to wait in this line. I'm going to, get through the ticket reader. And I think it's hard. I think we're all trained so quickly, even just from your personal life of how you order food. Everything was stood up so quickly, for transactions, and this idea of curbside pickup and everything. I think a lot of that's transferred over into events. So I think the fan experience in general has changed and will continue to evolve through technology and networks. Yeah, and then of course in experiential, we have to keep up with it. We have to keep.
No more tchotchkes, right? Well, we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know. No more like big goggles going on your head at an event. Not sure people are going to be comfortable with that.
Right, right. So you talked a little bit about technology. What excites you about the future of sports marketing, in terms of technology? Go past 2020, regardless of the rainy day, plan A, plan Bs. What's really exciting you about the future?
So I think it's just what we've been talking about, is the fan experience changing. I think, the way technology, how quick, right, we can stand up things, and how massive the impact could be, through technology, and through the speed of, like, selfishly for the networks being able to enable these things happening. I think from a broadcast standpoint, again, it's, we're viewing things differently. We're consuming media differently now as well. And so I think those things are going to continue to evolve. I think we're going to see some really amazing advancements in technology that give fans a lot more of immersive experience, like feeling like you're right there. I do see that, and I think it's exciting.
Absolutely. And being at Verizon, I'm sure there's some technology that, 5G and some of those things that are definitely going to play into all of that.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah,
It's exciting.
it is. So in a pre-COVID world, how do you usually measure success for experiential?
So, we, again, with this idea of experiential really being engagement marketing, it was really measuring the impact of the engagements, amount of engagements and the level of engagement. Have we resonated enough with the consumer that's going to drive an action, whether it's, traffic to a store or .com, or will they look at their own Verizon plans differently, and upgrade, add lines, acquire new customers. So it's really about, we were, focused on deepening that relationship with existing customers, and then, of course, like trying to bring in new. I don't think that really changes post COVID. It's just the way we go about it, obviously, is a little bit different.
Got it. And has the pivot to these more virtual experiences this year tied experiential more tightly to media, like to more traditional media?
Um, Both. I mean, we've been trying to, like everybody, like stand up, virtual events, that can stand on their own.
Hmm.
We are leaning into our sports partners, because with sports and the broadcast and the revenue stream that they have with broadcast, they're still able to play games
Yeah.
and continue, versus music, which is separate in entertainment. So we are leaning into what does the broadcast look like, and like I said, with Yahoo and this co-viewing experience, second screen experience, really,
Yeah.
is important. And I think that's some of the we've had to jump in and try and bring to fans. Oh,
No worries. Uh-oh, we're having technical difficulties. Let's give Christina just a second here.
I'm good.
Okay.
That's new printer.
New printer, of course. So Christina, I have some questions from the audience that have come in, and I'm gonna go through a few of these. So if you could attend an in-person sporting event right now, what would it be?
Oh, if the Rangers had made it to the Stanley Cup, I would have would have been there. I would be at a hockey game.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this next question, so sports, especially American sports, such as baseball and football, have increased their international reach, expanding to new audiences. Do you think that this may in the future create more career opportunities for women outside of the United States?
That is a great question, and I hope so. I think that with some of the effects of COVID and this expansion that we're seeing, yeah, I think it does open up opportunities. And I think that right now, with a lot of brands and a lot of organizations in the sports leaning into women, and advancing, I think it is a great opportunity, and probably one that there will open up opportunities for us.
The more of us there are, the more, will be welcome, right? So this is a great question. How did your journey lead you to a sports role? Do you enjoy watching, or did you play previously?
Okay, so like I said, it was the fear of not being able to pay my car insurance that led me to Rush. I was I was a communications major. They didn't have the sports marketing major when I was in college, but they had communications, and I thought PR was going to be my route. But I needed a job, and this one came up, and I made it through the interview. And that is actually how I got into it. And my first sports roles were supporting, NBA. Hoop It Up for you, those of you who remember that grassroots program, and the Olympics. So I was really lucky. I learned so much. My career did move around a bit, like from sports to entertainment and music, and now back at Verizon, where I get to manage both, which is really, really exciting.
Okay, I'm asking this question. So you work in both entertainment, music, and sports. What differences do you see in those fan bases? Is there something about sports that's really interesting, or that goes to a different level?
Well, I mean, fandom is fandom, and you can find, I got to say that it's equal. Um, because we know and we embrace those super fans that are at those games, that are dressed up in their colors, whether it's soccer, football, baseball, like they are the super fans. But then from a music standpoint, I got to tell you, we did an experience with Shawn Mendes, and